You bolt upright and break your sleep with a cold sweat. You think back and remember a shrill and nearly ethereal cry that entered your dreams. You wipe away some of the cold sweat and take in your surroundings. The fire has died to embers and your companions are fast asleep, including the cleric who was supposed to be on watch, but you grumble to yourself. As you scan your surroundings, you freeze as you hear the same cry from your dreams. Fear paralyzes you, and an arrow made of soft white light pierces the fighter as he lies across the fire, tucked cozily into his bedroll. He wakes from sleep immediately and cries out in pain as he looks to the wound. Frantically, he begins to skin the area as the others awake. You and the fighter make eye contact, and he realizes you're frozen in fear. He scrambles out of his bedroll and grabs his two-handed greatsword, which he brandishes in front of him as he begins to turn in slow circles, scanning his environment. The cleric gets to their feet, but the sorcerer just yawns and rolls over, not having fully identified the threat. A gaunt creature steps out of the surrounding woods behind the fighter with a club raised, but it makes no sound. You try to cry out, but your body still won't move. A sharp, wet crack rings out, and the fighter falls to the ground. The cleric yells obscenities and begins harnessing their divine power as the being lets out another shrill cry and draws an arrow to aim down at the bloodied fighter. It turns its attention to you briefly, and you see the remaining skin and musculature on its face contort into a way that might be perceived as a victorious grin. Roll for initiative. Hey there, creatures, and welcome to Encounter This, a podcast exploration of the creatures from Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the lore that surrounds them.
Hello there, listeners, viewers. Listeners is just stuck in my head. You know, it's both. It's either, but I always just listeners is my gut.
You know, we're as much as we're doing it in video form, I still believe in my heart that this is an audio podcast. It just, somehow, I mean, podcast doesn't even really fit anymore, right? Like,
hello there, media observers. Welcome to another episode of Encounter This.
see, observe is visual, media consumers.
Observe does not have to be visual, though. We can observe things we can't see via instruments that allow us to do so.
Okay.
I am Freeman, he who stands forever, Easton. And of course, today I'm confusing my cohort, James Longfellow Kidd, who will be taking us through, I think, a very interesting creature. One that gives us a little bit of trepidation, but excitement and very strong interest for sure. It is going to be the Baykok. Correct me if I'm wrong in saying that, if you can. And if you want to follow along, it is going to be Bestiary 3, page 29. So not the most recent of books, but the next recent of official monster manual type releases. Tell me about the Baykok. I think I have an image in my head. I've read this creature and seen the page of it. But yeah, tell me about what this creature is all about.
Right. So I guess the primer for a lot of these episodes is that when we're scheduling them or scheduling them to be posted, a lot of what I do is look at tags and then find creatures that match those tags. So this one is one of those creatures. I had no idea what I was getting into when I started this creature.
Okay, yeah.
And I love it. I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot.
And by
of
tags,
cool
you mean
mechanics.
like, you know, you're looking for like undead or aberration or like the traits. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had a flood of aberration, at least at the end of 2023. So I've been trying to vary it a little bit. Yeah, so we're going to go with the pronunciation Baykok for this one. It is anglicized, but we are also anglicized, so I think we'll be okay there.
Yep.
For those of you who can't see us, we We look exactly like you imagine. We're just two white dudes with beards.
We're white as fuck.
Doing white dude with beard shit.
White dudes with beards, with beer paunches.
Yeah, absolutely that. The other note we should talk about before we get going is that the reading list for this one is quite extensive. There's a lot of really interesting little websites that I touched for this that we'll be probably using again because some of them are really good. So head on over to our website, encounterthis.ca, to check those out if you're interested in going on a little bit of a deeper dive. But for the most part, these all have the same general information. But before we get into our stuff, let's get into the Pathfinder stuff.
Pathfinder game lore.
Yeah, so we'll just start with the image. That's what these things look like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Now this creature, there's a creature that doesn't look like this, but I always mix them up. I forget. I don't even remember the name right now, but I knew it was one of the two images in my head. This was one of them. So this is terrifying, to say the least.
It kind of is. So for audio listeners, this is a humanoid dressed in like a fur toga with long decayed flesh, but it looks mean and tough, even though its muscles have clearly atrophied and the flesh hugs the bone.
Oh yeah, it is scrawny as all hell, but it gives you that like a scary, like, it's scrawny, but it packs some punch kind of vibes. It's got a bow on its back with some with a quiver of arrows. It's got like a very makeshift looking cudgel of some kind. Its hair done up in a bun that's frayed and falling apart. Oh, is it a bone?
Yeah.
Could very well be. I think the weirdest part that you might miss right away, but if you take a second to look, is that it is very much not standing on the ground, despite the fact that it's in a posture of standing on the ground.
I'm glad floating. You caught that.
Yeah.
It also has a horn on its belt. I can't remember if that comes into the Pathfinder mechanics, but that definitely comes from the IRL lore. So
okay, cool. I did notice that as well. Yeah, it's that little floating, because this image doesn't really give us any geographical or like terrain reference. Oh, I just knocked my light over. Sorry, everyone.
Except for the shadow underneath it.
There we go. Just fix my green screen.
If the video listeners, if you look really closely, it is it has like a shadow below it, so you can. That's the only way you can tell it's hovering in the official art.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a strange posture for its feet. It looks like it's just standing on nothing. No, it doesn't. Their feet aren't even in a position as if it were levitating. They're not dangling, and I think that for some reason that just unnerves me.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of their whole thing. So that's perfect. Yeah,
wicked.
So these are the remains of a warrior or hunter that had become restless. Usually that warrior or hunter in life was cast out of society for evil acts, and then cursed to forever soar the sky far from its home, never to set foot on the ground again. Hence why it looks like it's walking through the air.
Oh,
because it is. Yeah.
Yep.
This creature's lonely cries are audible for miles at night, so you can see the horn where it would let out its bays and its howls. Mm-hmm. A jealous rage drives it to hunt isolated humanoids, specifically warriors who remind it of its former life. So it's like a contest of champions or a Highlander kind of thing here.
Mm-hmm.
As much as this artwork shows a quiver with arrows, it's actually an empty quiver, because it fires invisible arrows that carry its soul-freezing loneliness, and that was a direct quote from Paizo.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
Yeah, and since it envies those still in life, its envious touch can help steal a victim's vitality, which we'll definitely be getting into later.
Okay, then. Yeah, that sounds very mechanical.
Yeah. There is a sidebar called the Endless Exile. This is actually pretty poetic, but wind is its prison, cursed to be blown about forever. Even after it's destroyed, the wind tears at its bones, and that's why it's all emaciated.
Oh, cool.
except its skull, which remains intact but falls to the ground holding its soul. So, from
Oh.
this state, the Baykok can be restored to life or reassembled. If trapped long enough, the skull's soul can reach out to sensitive people and ask for help. So there's not really any way to destroy this thing. If you kill a Baykok, its head
Oh.
just falls to the ground and it either regenerates or makes somebody else go insane. Like there's, I mean, I guess you could probably crush the skull or pull some GM fiat, but
Right.
in the lore, this thing
Yeah.
is endless.
Yeah, surely there's there's a way to, if you say you manage to destroy the head, but it's like, it's like a matter of when you're attacking undead, they become destroyed, but it's not like the body disintegrates into dust like maybe a mummy might or something. But um they're just no longer, pieced together well enough to function, so you win.
Right.
And in this case, the one part that's going to resist further decay is the head, which gives it that lag up to be regenerated, which is kind of cool.
Exactly. So these did appear in 1E, which is I think the first time for me in an age, and this is what they looked like in 1E. They've got these real horrifying feet that bend at an awkward angle that make me super uncomfortable.
Yep. It's very lizard-like or like amphibian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is, yeah. So this howling corpse swoops through the air with hideous elongated legs and a bow made of bone. So, very similar to our 2E1, it is created from the tainted souls of dead hunters, but these ones have become obsessed with the chase and revel in the savagery of the kill. Sometimes after their life ends, their soul will rise, becoming this particular soaring undead horror.
Okay. I gotta say, for this artwork, I love everything but the weaponry. I think the weaponry makes no sense in this artwork. No shade to the artist, but like the creature itself is badass and terrifying. The bow and the quiver and the arrows and the mace on its barely hanging off of its fucking waist, like it just, they don't match. It's kind of weird.
No, they almost kind of look like they were pulled from some sort of like Deva art or something. Like the bow is,
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be made of horns, but it kind of just looks like the Pink Ranger's bow from Power Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like over the top, maybe made from horns, but also they tried to make it vertebrae at the same time, and you're like, whose bones are those? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But like without the weapons, really cool.
Yeah, the pose is really frightening too, because it's like leaping off of nothing with its bow drawn.
Right.
So again, for the 1E, to quote Paizo, these kill purely for ecstasy that only murder. Sorry, these kill purely for the ecstasy that only murder can bring them. So, love of the game. They hate all living things and they want to prove how good they are at hunting. And when in combat, they will ignore weaker members of a party in favor of its true prey, which is the strongest one in the party. So your fighter, your ranger, probably not your DPS, but your highest strength and AC probably.
Yeah.
And then when the 1E1 kills its prey, it swoops down and devours the soul of the dead, so that fallen warrior can never come back to seek revenge.
Okay. Amazing. I do love.
That's it for.
I always. It's funny, interesting that when things target the weaker prey, and because, or sorry, or ignore them, either or, because it seems a bit odd. You have to wonder, like, how do they know? How do they know which one's the weaker prey? How do they determine that? You can't just go ahead and say, as a GM, they automatically know if someone's a lower level than the rest of the party. It's really like you have to kind of almost have them observe and make a judgment, or assuming they're intelligent, or have them react to the most powerful impacts in the moment during combat, and then switch targets accordingly. It's always fun, an interesting descriptor in like their motivation to either ignore or target the strongest or weakest, because it's not just so it's, to me, it's like, it's not just so obvious which one it should be, and it ought to be a bit muddied and hazy as a combat continues. Which one's had the most impact on me, or the least?
Right. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I generally agree. But when combat starts, somebody's going to have the highest strength, and that is the highest strength to me is one of the only attributes, if not the only one, that has a physical manifestation, and that's in your bulkiness.
Yeah.
So you just target the biggest one.
Well, I guess there's that. You target the biggest one, the bulkiest one. That's an easy go-to for sure. But the moment the wizard pulls off an insane fireball, you might change your mind.
Right. Yeah.
So I just want to throw that.
Unless there's a ranger in the party, in which case you attack the ranger, because there are other warriors, other hunters.
Yeah.
They want to prove that they are the best hunters. So as soon as somebody hunts prey on a Baykok, it is changing its direction.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah. The moment that precision damage goes through when the rangers hunt prey, it's game over.
Yep. Okay, targeting you and you alone now. Good luck. But that's it for Pathfinder. Pretty quick and easy.
Okay.
It's all really, really good. Like we'll see in a minute here how well that adds up to the real world stuff that I was able to find. So let us jump into that.
Mythology and Folklore.
Yeah. Okay. As it's become part of these episodes for me, there is a little bit of a disclaimer.
We talked before.
The first is the first is the usual one. I'm gonna mess up these pronunciations. I don't speak these languages natively, but I have done my research to the best of my ability, and I have practiced these like I have every time since you made fun of me in Rakshasa.
Mahabharata.
Mahabharata. Yeah.
Mahabharata.
So, like I said earlier, there are a lot of links over at encounterthis.ca if anybody wants to take a deeper dive. But the real disclaimer for this episode is that I wasn't really able to find any confirmed firsthand indigenous sources. Everything I was able to find online, and including its introduction outside of the indigenous world, is all through a Western lens and anglicized, as we'll see here. So I'm doing my best, but if you have any more information, I would love to hear more. This is, as are all of the creatures we do, insanely interesting, and I want to go down this mythology rabbit hole a little bit more. So please feel free to reach out to us if I've pronounced anything wrong, or if you have more reading material for me, because we would love that. You can do that at info@encounterthis.ca if you want to email us, or you can slide into our Discord at unchartednorth.com/discord, and you can get direct access to us over there. So, early plugs. Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. Couple of clarifying statements. First is the word Anishinaabe. This is a group of culturally related indigenous peoples present in the Great Lakes region of Canada and the U.S. As far as I understand, that is the name for the populace. The people are Anishinaabe.
Okay.
Think. Okay. Won't come up much, but it might. Of the Anishinaabe people, there are a lot more tribes that we would recognize, and I hope tribe is still the current, the correct parlance for that. But hopefully this is the only time I use that word. The first is the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potame, the Mississaugas, the Nipissing, and the Algonquin. So the Baykok comes from Anishinaabe folklore, but it specifically comes as a malevolent spirit from the Ojibwe nation. So we have a couple of Ojibwe other pronunciations, and the first is Pagok, Pagok, Bagok, and Bakak. Those are all spelled phonetically, I'm assuming, because I'm almost 100% sure that's not the written Ojibwe. And the Algonquin name is Pakak. Yeah. So I believe these languages share a tradition, and that's why this has so many root words related in specifically in the Anishinaabe language.
Yeah.
So Baykok, or Baykok, the anglicized version, in that language literally translates to skeleton,
Oh, okay.
but figuratively translates to a skeleton, to bones draped in skin, instead of the traditional skeleton meaning of bare bones like we would assume. There's also a history of puns in these cultures, apparently, when it comes to this creature specifically.
Oh, yeah?
So Baykok is also short for Bekau Awe Be Wizard, which I just ruined.
Wait, no,
Meaning-
let me give it a try. Let me give it a try. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But oh shit, hold on. Bakakatwa Wizard. Oh no, that's
Yeah.
really hard. Oh shit.
Bek
It means
Wa Be Wizard.
yeah.
Which translates to extremely thin being. There are more puns throughout
okay.
one of the texts we're going to talk about, but I don't really get into them. You can check out the reading material for that, but they're all kind of a play on this shortening of Baykok. So
okay, cool. That's pretty fun though.
yeah, it's neat. So this creature, as we've seen in Pathfinder, flies through the forests of the region, uttering these shrill cries. It appears as an emaciated skeleton-esque being with clear skin and glowing red points for eyes. It specifically only preys upon warriors, using invisible arrows or a club. Pretty similar so far.
Yep.
After paralyzing or killing its prey, sources vary, it eats their liver.
Okay.
Sometimes it's said to approach sleeping hunters, cut open their chest, and remove a piece of their stomach without waking their victim. Could not find a reason for this or a source for this, just really cool.
Amazing. I can't help but think that sort of pieces of folklore like this, it's funny how they always have a specificity in the organ. In some ways, it's usually the same ones. Liver comes up a lot, and I can only imagine it's because it's when you get hit in the stomach, you get injured in the stomach, it's danger time. It is incredible danger time. The liver might seem like I'm sure if you're like kind of, I don't know if they did autopsies back in the day to
assume not.
Yeah, even just for out of curiosity, but it's like that arrow hit so and so and hit them here, and like maybe you look inside and you go, "We hit that thing. That thing must be important," and that thing was probably the liver. But I just imagine that the vital organs, while misunderstood, were very obvious to a certain point to people, like when people were being killed. It was like, clearly this is a thing. So that kind of I just guess that leads leads into the mythology a bit.
I got to go out on a limb and just thank you for that, because that's such an interesting rationalization and way better than mine.
Okay.
And it really, this is for our listeners, this is really going to highlight the dichotomy between Freeman and I. As far as I'm concerned, other than the heart, the liver is hands down the most delicious offal. Like,
I wasn't at all thinking about.
I just assumed it's because the liver's awesome. Liver is delicious. So it would be an ingredient that they're familiar with cooking and eating, and they would know that.
Yeah. No, I that's so funny. Oh my god. Because I was literally thinking through my head, it was like, oh, we always hear about the liver. You often hear about the stomach, certainly the heart, once in a while the lungs. Despite how valuable they are, you don't hear about the kidneys too much. Because even if you do injure one, you probably recover. You injure one lung, could kill you. Heart, liver, stomach could kill you. One kidney, not necessarily going to kill you. So it doesn't come up anymore, or like the rest of them do. So that's where my head was at.
That's fair. No, I love it. I think that's that's a way better rationalization than mine.
That's so funny.
It's good. I like it.
You're like,
a couple of fried
this
onions.
thing ate piece of stomach because piece of stomach is delicious. How did you become the meathead?
It just makes sense to me.
Oh god, that's funny. Anyway,
Okay.
continue.
So
Killing
in
me.
the Anishinaabe Nation, these are created when an evil warrior dies a dishonorable or shameful death. Their bones are then taken and scattered by those they have wronged, resulting in a spirit unable to rest because their skeletal structure is incomplete.
Okay.
Which is, I'm not sure if that's particularly the reason in indigenous culture, but we have seen that throughout other cultures in the world, and I drew a
Certainly.
through line there. So take
Yeah.
your shots if I'm wrong, please.
Mhm.
Okay. This is one of the few creatures I think that we have a confirmed origin story as far as the West is concerned.
Okay.
So in 1855, an epic poem called The Song of Hiawatha by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, read white dude, was translated and published. He's actually got way more bona fides than you would think for a white dude in 1855. As far as I can tell, he's doing his source work. But this is what introduces the Baykok to the West. A couple of little hits about Longfellow and the Song of Hiawatha. Longfellow was the first American to fully translate the Divine Comedy, which I thought was awesome.
Oh, okay.
Love that story. The entire epic is written in Trochiakic tetrameter. No idea how to even begin to explain that to the listeners, but there are links in the documents, again, encounterthis.ca. I tried, but their only good example of trochaic tetrameter is the Song of Hiawatha. It's used as the prime example. It is a rhyming scheme, and he uses that throughout the epic. He's actually kind of prolific in that scheme and maybe invented it, but it's not credited to him as far as I was able to tell.
Yeah, I just clicked the link you provided in the document there just for curiosity, and it's interesting. Yeah. Because it gives like a rhythm.
Really, and I think that was picked specifically for the cadence. So it would not quite match, but at least be a facsimile of the indigenous, the Anishinaabe speech pattern. I think there's no justification for that, but after seeing it and reading some of the Song of Hiawatha in its original translation, it's it feels right that's the reason they went that way. Longfellow also just seemed to have loved this style. This is not the first epic he wrote in that style. It's not the last epic. So
okay, cool.
Do with that.
Yeah, the rhythm it offers is quite simple. It's like dum da dum da dum da dum da, and then the first example is literally the Song of Hiawatha, which is cool. And it's like by the shores of Gichigumi or something like that. Which now that I say that out loud, there's a part of me that feels like it's sort of offensive.
That's why I didn't use an example.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Sorry to step over that.
No, it's cool. I should have thrown a flag up there because it feels wrong to use that scheme as a white dude.
No, I do wonder though. If I may, I do wonder if it just slowly turned into something offensive as opposed to the original. Because there's a Shakespearean example there as well, and I do wonder if white people just turn that into something awful because white people,
that's our whole.
Despite it being totally innocent originally,
I would actually imagine that caricature probably stems from this because this is one of the first English translations of their mythos.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
That caricature could just come from this, but.
Right.
The epic itself is about a fictional Ojibwe adventurer called Hiawatha and his love for Minahina, a Dakota woman, another tribe but further south. It's set in Michigan on the south shore of Lake Superior. Based on the oral traditions surrounding Manabozo or Nanabozo or Nanabush. This is a trickster figure as far as I can tell. In the Anishinaabe scope, Longfellow himself had a friendship with Chief Kagigigabo, which translates to "He Who Stands Forever." His anglicized name is George Copway. He's an Ontario boy from Trenton.
Yep.
Chief He Who Stands Forever would visit
Yeah.
Longfellow at his home,
Yeah.
and speak with him. So Longfellow would then transcribe these tales, and then kind of combine them with Sauk mythologies he learned from Baykok, who's another famous indigenous tribe leader, to form this particular epic. It was also an immediate success, and by 1857, in 2 years, he had sold 50,000 copies.
Wow. In 1857.
1857. I don't even know if Gutenberg's printing press was around yet.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
So crazy. The entirety of the epic is included in the reading list. It is the first list if you want to read it. It is really cool, really interesting. I have not read all of it. I haven't even read most of it, but what I have read, really interesting.
Cool.
So we're going to do a very poor, very quick summary here. Again, come at me if this is wrong, because I did my best.
Yeah, just available
really
sources for this are few and far between, which is a shame, right? Just
I would have loved to have had time to read the whole epic, but it just, we got to burn and turn these episodes in 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so it is about the deeds of the fictional Ojibwe hero Hiawatha, and his gifts to his people. It is also a tragic love story with Minnehaha, and starts before Hiawatha's birth. It follows him through childhood and adulthood as he falls in love with Minnehaha, marries her, and loses her to illness. So she dies young.
Mm-hmm.
He then goes on to defeat a bunch of malevolent gods, gives his people reading and writing, and it ends with Hiawatha getting the chiefs to accept the Christian message, whatever that is. And Hiawatha does a Frodo and sails his canoe into the sunset to disappear forever.
Oh, that's not how I wanted it to end. That's for sure. Damn. I was thinking, when I realized that Hiawatha was involved in this, I was trying to remember. I had a VHS of this film called Hiawatha that I watched on repeat as a kid. I don't remember it though. I remember watching it a lot, and I was hoping that something would spring up, but I got nothing. Other than that, I did quickly try to Google which, because apparently there's a lot of Hiawatha animated films. And
Yes.
my guess is the one that was produced in 1988 is the one that I had. And it turns out for some reason, it's an Australian production of all things. But that's literally all I have to add to that. I wish I remembered it more. Damn.
Well, we do have one more image. This is a statue of Hiawatha and Minnehaha by Job Fjeld, built in 1912, and it is near that lake where this epic is said to have taken place.
Right.
So, real statue that you can go see.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's kind of neat. It's very intimate. It's very loving. Probably very sad.
Yes, it is definitely that.
Definitely that.
So, the Baykok, you may ask, what this show is about. How does this come in? So, as far as I can tell, this is credited for introducing the Baykok to the masses. Also, as far as I can tell, it doesn't ever seem to be referenced by name. I did a Control F, and it didn't show up in any of the iterations of spelling that we have seen.
Mm-hmm.
But it is referenced as the mystic chorus or the evil spirit, first appearing in chapter 15 called Hiawatha's Lamentation. There's a quote here. I'm not going to read it for reasons as stated earlier, but it's there.
Okay.
Or at least I'm not going to attempt the
rhythm.
The rhythm.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's fair. Yep.
When I speak, the wigwam trembles, shakes the sacred lodge with terror. Hands unseen begin to shake it. When I walk, the sky I tread on bends and makes noise beneath me. So this is the Baykok or the Mystic Chorus talking to Hiawatha about their abilities. And, when I walk the sky I tread on is what tipped me off that the Mystic Chorus is probably just the Baykok, but it had been renamed at some point.
Yeah. Cool. Very poetic. Very, yeah.
Yeah. That said, there is a real Chief Hiawatha. He is a 16th century Iroquois chief and a founder of the Iroquois Confederacy representing the Mohawk tribe, which is crazy.
Wow.
I don't know how familiar you are with the Iroquois Confederacy, but it is really neat. And it essentially brings the Mohawk, the Onondaga, the Oneida, the Cayuga, and the Seneca tribes all together. Probably messed up at least all of those. But there's a link to that if you want to go down that rabbit hole. I thought it was worth mentioning that I believe this chief is Hiawatha's namesake.
Wild. Okay.
Yeah. So that's as far as we're going to go down the cultural rabbit hole. I feel like that was just tiptoeing through the landmines as we went down there. But
yeah, I've nearly stepped on a few myself there by mistake. Hey, you put the link in. I thought it was kosher.
No,
as it were.
You're right. I should have said something. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
But it's attempting to replicate the style in of itself is not offensive. It's actually the opposite of that. It's you're paying deference to the original style of the poem, as much as it doesn't feel right for guys who look like us to be using that particular rhyming scheme. It is still how this was written, and it was written to pay tribute to these people. So I imagine even the choice of I keep wanting to say pentameter, but it is definitely not that. The tetrameter, tetrameter, was chosen for that reason. So I imagine everything was put into this because, again, he had contact with these high-ranking, very insanely high-ranking indigenous people. Again, links to all these people. These are all real people. They're all scattered throughout the documents. So I don't think it's offensive to do it. I think it would be offensive to do it in a mocking way, and that's
I think that's what stood out to me as I was doing it. Is I realized all of a sudden that it's all it is a rhythm. But I realized suddenly I've heard this before as I'm saying it, and I've heard it probably only ever in mocking tones. And I don't remember the last time I thought about it at all, let alone in mocking tones. But the moment I did it, I was like, "Whoa!" it was like it flooded back to me. Yeah, wild, wild.
It's unfortunate.
Just a rhythm can do that. It can be that. Yeah.
And it really is unfortunate because it's a really interesting rhythm, and it's not something we come across in our daily lives anymore. So, at least again, people who look like us come across in our daily lives. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, so the comparison is pretty straightforward. It's very similar to the Ojibwe mythos. A skilled hunter is killed and disrespected, rises again as an emaciated skeleton unable to touch the ground, shoots invisible arrows, eats them after the kill. Though it isn't particularly similar to the Song of Hiawatha version, if I have indeed found the correct reference to them through that. I am ready for Mystic Chorus or Evil Spirit to not actually be the Baykok.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just hit the spoiler button, but you're welcome. Video listeners, there's a fun video gag for you.
Spoilers. James is new at this.
Yeah. I went to put my hand next to my stream deck so I could get ready for this guy.
Mechanics.
And like an idiot hit the stupid spoilers button.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. So these are listed as legacy content on Archives of Nethys because they technically are. Now that the remaster has been out, they haven't been touched since they're in Bestiary 3. I don't expect them to be touched, so we're presenting them as is, except for the alignment, because that's not. I mean, that's
negligible at this point. Yeah. That's one of the weird things with the update, the recent update on Archives of Nethys, is that pretty much anything that wasn't reprinted will be tagged as legacy. But what the thing you have to understand is that if it wasn't reprinted, it's still legit as is, other than the things have been removed or renamed. So
Yep. So
let's get into it.
CR9, level 9.
9. Oh, that's solid.
Yep. Yeah. AC 27. 200 HP with void healing because undead.
Undead. Yep.
They're medium and they have that undead trait.
Of course.
Since they have the undead, their recall knowledge is religion. 26, 24, 21 for unspecified and specific.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 19 perception, which is kind of middling, but not bad.
It's not bad for 9.
30-foot land speed, which I was confused by, and a 40-foot fly speed, which I was also kind of confused by. But then I realized they don't have a hover speed technically.
Yeah.
In 2e, so
there'd be
no
not hover. Yeah.
Flying. Yeah, I would just use the land speed, even though they're not technically touching the ground, because I believe that's what that's for in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
They speak common, and they have dark vision. I don't know why I'm saying that. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, even it was like, really? Common, I guess. I mean, most undead speak necro. Or I don't know if they changed that actually. I can't remember. But it does feel like this would speak a particular, or the local common dialect, I should say.
Yeah,
I
wouldn't assume this is Taldane. I would just assume that this is common. It could be Tianjia, it could be Garund, it could be.
And I'm quite sure that Paizo has not bothered quite yet to touch on their sort of interpretation of North American indigenous peoples, which I believe was the Shawanti in their lore. So I don't know if that's come up or not. I actually quite confident it hasn't come up in 2E releases so far, and whether or not they'll go down that road.
And this isn't tied to a culture. This is just agnostic.
Right.
It's disrespected undead warrior. Yeah. It has 6 strength, 4 dex, 5 con, no int, 4 wisdom, and 1 charisma, which is 1 too high for my liking, but I get it.
Sometimes you got to just distribute an extra point somewhere because it can't go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, it can't go into intelligence.
Yeah.
All right, 17 acrobatics, 19 athletics, 17 stealth, kind of what you would figure for an undead floating warrior.
Yep.
20 fortitude save, 19 reflex, 15 will save. And here is where shit gets a little interesting. No resistance, but they are weak to air 10, bludgeon 10, and earth 10.
Oh.
Yeah. So that air 10 is to represent the wind whipping at their bones and ripping off their skin. That earth 10 is because they are forbidden from touching the ground ever again. And the bludgeoning is because they are a skeleton.
Yeah, because they skelly boys.
Yeah.
That is interesting because I don't think we've seen that much. Like, it's obvious when you say fire 10, but fire do fire damage. Earth don't do earth damage. Earth do bludgeoning damage. So or piercing damage or whatever. Air usually do maybe slashing or bludgeoning as well. But that's interesting because that means that if you use an ability that has the air or earth trait attached to it, regardless of the damage it's actually dealing, it's going to take this extra 10. That's cool. Mechanically, I think that's neat.
Yeah, I think this might be the only time we've encountered air and earth weaknesses.
I think I'm quite sure, yeah.
But I fucking love it. Like, it's
cool.
It's tied so well into this creature, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure there's a spell that you slash with air and it does slashing damage. Because it's a spell with the air trait, extra 10. That's cool.
Yeah, or if your player telekinetic projectiles a piece of stone, weak 10.
Well, if the GM wants to give it the earth trait, but the earth trait technically as an elemental trait would have to be a magical elemental earth technically, not just tossing
Okay.
a rock. Yeah, it's like the difference between magical and non-magical fire, like, mechanically. Like magical, alchemical, or even natural fire. Yeah,
that makes sense. But this doesn't say air trait or earth trait.
no, but
I guess that's
I'm quite
implied,
sure
right?
it's implied. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Because if it wasn't, then you could just walk out and go, and that would be air damage.
I mean, if you're only doing 10 damage, I would probably let you.
Only 10 is not only 10 when it's only 10 or 200 HP at level 9. I think 10's pretty reasonable for
it's
having
5%.
pursed your lips and blown.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot.
You say that, but you were immediately going to regret that.
True, it's a pretty big waste of an action at the end of the day.
Yeah, let's get into some of its actions in a second.
Sure, yeah.
But
Did you
before
cover
we do
the
that,
immunities? Sorry.
yeah, it is immune to death effects, disease, paralyzed, poison, and unconscious because undead.
Mm-hmm.
And it is carrying a +1 longbow and a +1 striking great club.
A great club. Oh, a great club must be two-handed. No.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
I don't have that information in front of me.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's fine.
It does have 1 passive. Nope, it has 3 passives.
Well, no, it does have 1 passive. It just has 2 more.
Right. Yes. So
I got you.
It's got frightful presence. Yeah. Which come with the aura, emotional, fear, and mental trait. This is a 120-foot aura. DC 25 or DC 25 will.
Mm-hmm.
Triggered when you first enter the area, and it is regardless of the results. They're temporarily immune for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So crit fail, frighten 4, fail, frighten 2, success, frighten 1, crit success, you good.
Yeah, pretty common aura, actually, I think. Says the guy who can't function on auras at all. But
it's all good.
Yeah, it's that one I've seen many times. Just it's terrifying to be near.
Yeah, 120 might be the biggest area we've seen. That's not a small amount, but
that is huge.
Regardless, temporarily immune for a minute, which is pretty great. Its next passive is called Banished from the Ground. It cannot touch earth or rocks surfaces. When it does, it is enfeebled 2 while in contact.
Oof, that's vicious. That's great because you can knock a flying creature prone.
Mm-hmm. You absolutely can trip a flying creature.
They do fall, yeah. And if you do any effect that causes a creature to go prone, a flying creature will then fall to the ground. Enfeebled 2 is brutal. Does not affect against AC, but it's got to recover regardless. It's going to want to make sure it gets up.
Yeah, absolutely. Its other passive is Arrow of Despair. This carries the emotion, fear, incapacitation, mental, and occult trait. This is that invisible arrow we were talking about.
Okay.
When a frightened creature is hit by the arrow, it is a DC 26 will save. Okay. The strike was a critical 1. The save is 1 degree of success worse for the target.
Okay.
So critical success is unaffected. Success, they're slowed for 1 round. Failure, +1 to frightened value to a maximum of 4. Slowed 1 until the frightened ends.
Mm-hmm.
At a critical failure, as a failure, but paralyzed until the frightened condition ends. However, at the start of each turn, they get a DC 26 will save to end that paralyzing early.
Okay, hold on. Gotta wrap my head around it a bit. Starting out, for sure, it's got incapacitation, which is significant. But if incapacitation comes into effect, but it crits, it effectively negates the incapacitation. Worse yet, if incapacitation doesn't come into effect and it crits, it's swinging the opposite direction and making getting really worse, which is which is awesome.
Yep.
So slowed 1 for 1 round, fine. +1 frightened value to a maximum of 4 on failure, and slowed until frightened ends. Okay, that one seems weird unless there's more to this stat block, because frightened is going to end quickly, even with its frightful presence because you're immune for a minute. And then, but the critical failure, paralyzed until frightened condition ends at the start of each turn. DC will to end the. Okay, I might be missing something. I'm not sure. Continue on, I guess. It seems to be very heavily reliant on the frightened condition being maintained on a regular basis, but I'm not seeing it.
Yes, it is, but that's because this is a passive ability. This isn't an action. This isn't an attack. This is a passive ability.
The Arrow of Despair is a passive ability.
Yeah, we're still on passives. We haven't even started into attack.
Oh, that's where I hurt my brain there. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
keep going.
Okay.
Pardon me.
Our final passive is called Wasting Curse. This has the Cursed and Occult trait. So when a target fails a save versus Devour Life, it is drained 1. Each time the target gets a full night's rest, they get a DC 26 Fortitude save. If they fail, the drained value increases. If target reaches drained 5, it dies. Curse ends if drained is fully healed.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah. Okay, now we'll run through its actions real quick.
Okay, all right, okay.
One action, Great Club. Yeah, 21, 16, 11 to hit. 2d10 plus 9 bludgeoning. Backswing, magical, and shove traits. All excellent.
Okay. It is two-handed weapon, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Longbow, same to hit, 100-foot range. 1d8 plus 6 piercing, 1d8 mental, and Arrow of Despair. And its traits are Deadly D10, Magical, and Volley 30. So if you're frightened, it just gets Arrow of Despair, because fuck everything about you.
Yep.
And its final action is also a single action and is called Devour Life. This carries the Curse and Occult traits. If adjacent to a paralyzed, restrained, or unconscious living humanoid specifically, they get a DC 26 Fortitude save. On a success, they're unaffected. On a failure, they get that Wasting Curse that we talked about earlier, that passive ability. Mm-hmm. And if it's the first time the Baykok has given them the Wasting Curse, it gains 20 HP, 20 temporary HP for 1 hour.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I feel like I'm kind of starting to piece it together here. So effectively, I mean, the Great Club's going to do more damage, as you would expect. Doesn't seem like it's its primary use, though. It seems like it wants the longbow. It wants to frightful presence you with its aura. Assuming you fail, hits you with the old longbow, which means it gets to add the Arrow of Despair on top of the damage, which is, I mean, it's already it's effectively 2d8 plus 6 different damage types.
Yep.
And then if it hits you with the Arrow of Despair, and assuming you fail, it increases the frightened value.
I'm listening, but you keep going. There's my fucking upstairs neighbors again.
Okay. Bastards. So there seems to be a breakdown here where the creature is relying heavily on the aura you failing, and then if you fail that and it hits you with the arrow, it increases your frightened value. Again, if you fail, and if effectively you keep failing, you're in incredible danger. And is it all will saves? Will save, Devour Life, Fortitude save. So will save from the aura, will save from the arrow. If you're failing both of those and it keeps attacking you, even though frightened comes off at the end of your turn, if it's managed to increase it, it's not gone right away. How interesting. Okay. And if you critically fail, you become paralyzed, it suddenly has this opportunity to devour the life from you, adding that wasting curse. And the wasting curse is attached. Okay, it's not attached to any attacks like some curses are. So interesting. What a
It's
what a
one
breakdown.
action for the curse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, mechanically,
Okay.
it's a really simple creature to wrap your head around.
It
but
is.
so
Yeah.
many complicated dominoes fall once you get involved in it.
Yeah. So if you fail that frightful presence, and like if you fail it, oh wait, hold on. If you fail it, you become frightened 2. So even a
Yeah,
success, you're
you
frightened
need a
1. If it
critical
strikes
success.
you and you fail the will save on the strike from the arrow, you become frightened 2. If you fail, you become frightened 2, and you fail on the strike, you become frightened 3. So like, oh yeah, okay, I can see how it's stacking up now. And if you critically fail across the board, you are in incredible danger.
Yeah.
Um, that is kind of neat, actually. I don't think I've seen a breakdown quite like this.
Yeah, I really fell in
Yeah,
love with how
yeah,
simple this creature is, but how okay, one leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the
right.
other, leads to you're hooped, bud.
You're hooped, bud. No, for real though, it's that's pretty. That can be pretty intense moment. I feel like it could really break down really quickly. Just imagine,
I
imagine if
That's the
you
point, right?
critically fail the initial presentation of this creature, and then
Yep.
you get hit by an arrow of despair, and you critically fail that. You have a tremendously higher chance of critically failing it because you're fucking frightened 4. Uh, and then suddenly you're
Yep.
paralyzed, and then suddenly it goes in with the wasting curse, and then you have to roll a save against that too. Um, damn, damn. If the
Yeah.
dice roll bad, that's brutal.
We also need to look at things like the frightful presence, the success, even a critical success. You're only immune for a minute. So if
Yeah,
you break off to regroup, second you go back, you're rolling all those saves. If
yeah,
this takes more than 6 rounds, you are rolling all those
yeah.
saves again. But
It's
more
not one of those
importantly,
10 minutes or like for a 24 hours, which are the more common
yeah,
ones. It is, yeah. It's if you go, oh, let's nope the fuck out of here, and this thing just comes back to harry you again. you're starting from square one.
that was going to be my point is that this
Mm.
thing is a hunter.
Yeah,
It's not going to let you retreat.
yeah,
Like,
that's
and
fun.
it's going after your big boys.
Yeah.
The lore tells us that it's going after the fighter. You think your fighter's got the best will save in your party?
Probably not.
Ugh.
Yeah. Hell of a thing. Yeah. That's really neat. I dig it. I really dig it. It is simple. You're right. I was having a hard time getting my head around it once it was around. Like, oh, the breakdown is straightforward. Um,
Yeah, I chose this
really, really
method
neat.
just because at the end it should all just click. Ideally,
Right.
that's the way I wanted
Yeah.
to teach people is here's all the complicated shit, but it only does 3 things and it can
Yeah.
only do 2 of them most of the time. The other
Yeah.
one is highly situational. So you've really only got a melee and a longbow and an aura to worry about. And then it's all the other fun shit on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be pretty obvious that to our more regular listeners that we don't follow these stat blocks like they're on Archives and Ethics or in the books. Like we rearrange them according to our own kind of flow. So yeah, I appreciate that because I always do that, like that, especially after the stats. When we get to the passive features and the reactions and the actions and the different abilities, put them in an order that, like, as you slowly start to understand the creature a little bit more, because they're most of the stat blocks are not arranged that way. But for consistency's sake, I
Yeah,
understand why Paizo
exactly.
does it,
Yeah.
but
But since
yeah,
we're
but
in an
there is a
educational setting, building
yeah,
that flow is very important to us.
big time, yeah. So very very cool. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about Le Homebrew, if you have anything.
Here we go. That neighbors being shitty was a thinly veiled ruse of actually peeing. I knew that
Oh
mechanics was going to take way longer than I
Fair enough.
I sent that, and then you're like, I'm starting to wrap my head around this. I'm like, I'm just gonna pee now.
That's too funny because I did not see your message until now.
Okay, so I'm ready to go into this, but we have
Okay,
the
sure.
option for a break if you need to.
No, I'm good to go. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. The brew in house. Yeah.
Bruin House.
I'm stupid today.
You are me today. I don't know what's going on.
I had a really physically demanding day, which I don't normally have as a bookkeeper. I was laying network cables for a restaurant where we have that's in the middle of a renovation, and it's just been nothing but a nightmare. So
yeah,
my brain is not shot, but it's well on its way.
Yeah. Fair enough.
The honest truth is, I've said this a couple of times, and every time I say it, I mean it. And I think this is a perfect stat block. There's not really a whole lot here that I would change, because this still has all those things that players have access to, like demoralize, intimidate. Like it may not be trained in those things, but it's got a +4 wisdom, so it's not it's not going to be great. But if you need to get that frighten again, you have a 1 action option on your belt that isn't really going to take away from your action economy. This creature is going to move, shoot, ideally, I guess.
Yeah.
+16 on the second shot is nothing to wave a stick at.
Yeah. I think that the one thing that stands out to me is it seems strange to me that it has a great club at all. It is a 40-foot fly speed and a longbow with the volley 30s trait. Like, this thing is going to do everything it can to not be in melee. And the great club doesn't in 120-foot frightful presence aura. Are you kidding? Like, this, it doesn't make sense that it would switch its tactic if you manage to get into melee. If you manage to bring it down to the ground and then get into melee and surround it, to me, I'm like, there's no way it switches to great club. It gets out of there if it can and continues to hunt you from afar. So that just seems a bit of a redundancy to me. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe they were thinking about, let's make sure we provide some runes on a weapon for loot. I don't know. But
I think it just needs a melee weapon at the end of the day. Like, the stat block would feel unfinished if it was all range and it wasn't part of like a subset like goblins or hobgoblins or something like that.
Well, I guess as a hunter, it makes sense to have something there. I totally get that. But maybe, I don't know, maybe give it a spear instead of a great club. It's a big ass 2-handed weapon. That doesn't, I know it's got the strength, but that's the part that's not adding up to me. Give it a spear. Give it something that's a little more apt for, something that's reach, at least, something that makes a little more sense with the flow of the rest of the stat block. That's the only thing I don't get.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised there wasn't like javelins or tomahawks included as well, because I believe tomahawk's still a weapon.
I don't think it is in 2E. I think it's just like kind of rolled into hand axe. Would be my guess.
Yeah, or I don't think or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've not really gone too far into, other than like monk weapons, which has been a hot topic lately. There hasn't really been a very culturally significant specificity in the weaponry for 2E.
And, there's no need for it, but giving it a couple of hatchets and a couple of javelins would make more sense, or even a long spear would make more sense than the Great Club. I think
there's always been more focus on like
a little more thematic though.
Yeah, so it's been more focused on like Tianjia related inspirations rather than the rest of the other cultures that are inspired Galarian. So, but I'm with you. I think at the end of the day, I think everything kind of makes sense. I think the air and earth weakness is really cool and interesting. The skills are straightforward. They be hunting, they be hunters. The stats make sense, and they are. I like that they're not mindless, so they aren't immune to mental effects, but they are, they're there to fuck with you mentally and take you down that way. I think it's really neat. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also a really good interpretation of what we've seen in the lore both Paizo and Anishinaabe. I think this is just a great tribute to both of those things, and we always love it when stuff like that adds up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to be it for this one. If you like this episode, you can help us make them by donating a few bucks to us every month at patreon.com/UnchartedNorth. $5 a month will get you a handwritten thank you letter and a theme button. $10 a month, you can suggest a creature like this. I don't know if there are any others in this particular mythos, but we would absolutely love to check them out if you can think of one. If you like any of our gear, our logo, if you want a little that whenever we say Critty, it's that little dice dude with the eyes in the corner there. So if you like Critty, if you like the Uncharted Compass, all done by Greyhood, we got some merch over at unchartednorth.com/shop. If you want to follow our socials for images and more information about when these things come out, you can find all that stuff linked in the description below, or they're scrolling around in the dealies down below on the YouTubes. Sound like my dad. Again, for the show notes.
Shut up about your Pokemans already.
Legos. I don't know why, but it's always triggered me when people put an S on Lego.
Oh, seriously though.
Yeah, it's a real trigger for me. I really wish I didn't say that on the internet.
Oh, that's so good.
So check out our reading list over at counterthis.ca. You can find all this stuff, and again, a full transcription of the Song of Hiawatha. If you are listening to this as an audio show and you want to see the video for whatever reason, you can do that at youtube.com/@encounterpod. They're all on there. Everything from 100 up is on there. And then everything from 100 lower is coming someday. But that won't be video. That will all just be reproduction. So it'll be available on all platforms. If you could rate and review wherever you're at, really helps us out with the algorithm. It does, when we get positive feedback from the community, it does help our show find new listeners and viewers. So if you can, hit that like button or drop us 5 stars wherever, 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever. It any review helps. And if you didn't like it, throw that thumbs down on the YouTube. Get in the comments. Tell us why. We want to know. We want to try and make this show better if we can. And if you don't want to do anything, or that's cool. We respect you. We're glad you came out. But if you want to do the bare minimum, just tell somebody. Word of mouth is by far our best advertising platform.
Just tell somebody. I experienced this awful Pathfinder podcast. You should know about it.
Maybe you'll like it.
Let me tell you why it's awful. Maybe they'll like it.
Yeah, who knows? Different strokes for different folks.
It's like when you see a restaurant on Google and it's got a rating of 4.6 something like that, and everyone's trying to get that 4.7 or that 4.8, and it's a just ridiculous grind. When you go and read a 1-star review on it, and you go, oh, that complaint just tells me why it's great.
Right.
I'm gonna go check that one out.
That example in particular isn't pulled from real life at all. So
not at all. No, not even a little bit.
Thank you so much, listeners, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next one. We hope you enjoyed this one.
Cheers, friends. Until next time, creatures, thanks as always for listening to Encounter This.